Thank you, Doctor, for those very elaborate sentiments. Mr. Promise, you have great experience in the banking sector, and when an SME comes to the bank and they need funding, what are the operational qualities you are looking for to be able to be of support to such an SME, be able to get investment funding, and also at the same time, as you look at those qualities, do they support the supply chains which they have, or are there some specific ones which you are looking for apart from operational qualities?
Okay. I'll give you. I'll give you a practical answer, right? Yeah. Because when I speak about SMEs, I actually speak about SMEs with mixed emotion. And the reason I say this is because they are not only contending with internal variables, they're also contending with external factors, which could be beyond their control. And what are those external factors? The policy issues, energy issues, tax issues, and so on and so forth. These are critical elements that can actually tax away their profit and then return them to hate. So when they say SME fail, we should also look at the entire gamut, right? I mean, within where they operate from and what must have actually been the root cause of that failure. Being in bank of industry for close to I think 18 years or thereabout, I've come across SMEs that are managed by semi-literate, and they grow to become highly successful, but they got stopped at some point because of knowledge gap, because they got into an arena where they can no longer compete, all right? Because they feel they can do it the same way they've been doing it for a long time. So you hear a promoter telling you that, promise, this has been my model, it has worked for me, and it's still going to work for me, right? And they forget that there could be product innovation, and there could market changes, and so on and so forth. So at that point in time, what we decided to do in BOI was to create something like a stopgap. And what do I mean by that? Some sort of business support framework to say, you know what, when an SME gets to a certain point, we need to associate that SME with a business development support provider that can actually handhold them through the process. Or sometimes we'll go as far as, setting up capacity building. We have a capacity building framework that can actually take them from that position or from the existing position to the next position. So you getting back to your question, you said, what factors would I look at? What characteristics? Of course, I have my checklist, right, which I call the risk acceptance criteria. And there are two ways to look at it. The first one is that if I'm looking at an existing enterprise, then I expect that enterprise to have some structures, right? It's easier for me to determine whether that project is going to be viable or not. First of all, I look at the existing structure, and I look at why they want additional funding. There has to be a clear case, business case for that, okay? Talking about FrieslandCampina and TemiTope, I might be meeting you up next week. I'll be at your factory, right? I want to see why you need 2 billion. I want to see why you need 5 billion. Okay? So if I put in that inflow, what is going to be the result or resultant effect of that inflow? Okay? Is it that you're trying to meet a demand gap? Is it that you're trying to backward integrate? And backward integrate has to be a bit critical, because you see sometimes, so SME, you can put your 10 fingers in your mouth. You can't be a jack of all trades. There's certain factors or certain chains that you don't have to get into. But what could be best for that enterprise at that point in time is to outsource. There's nothing wrong with outsourcing. Why do I have to get into logistics when I can focus on my core and then outsource the logistics and then have a partnership, all right, with a logistic company? Otherwise, if I decide to set up a company, then I have to make it independent of the main company that I'm managing. Okay, so we have to actually look at that. I've seen SME that has branched off, diversified into a risk environment, and at the end of the day, they were caught in the trap, and then went out of existence. So they have to be. Those are the kind of things we try to pitch to them. When they look at you from an external point, they feel that you're just a banker, or they know much more. But the fact of the matter is that when we speak to them, we actually leverage experiences of those that we have actually dealt with to say, you know what, this guy tried it. We may not mention them. So this guy tried it and it went off circulation. right? So the truth of the matter is that, yes, I also sympathize with that because I know TemiTope mentioned something about environment. I know he's talking from practical experience. Sometimes you come up with 5-year strategic plan, beautiful document, PowerPoint presentation with all the whole flowery point and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, before you start implementing, right, the dynamics has changed completely. You could also get a machine with 10 billion, 15 billion, all right, 2-3 years down the line, you discover that your computer has gotten a more sophisticated machine that gives him more, that helps him expand his productivity even beyond yours, right? So those are the variables that they can always compete with. But like I said, whatever you have control, make sure that you're able to put excellent structure in place. And what are the structure? It's simple. What are your process flow? I was talking to the SME. I said, when you get inventory from the market to your store, do you take record of that? He said, no, I have a small business. I can always, take record. I said, but do you have a structure where even before it moves from store into the production circle, do you take note of, what goes in? He said, no, but it's just small business. It goes from, sometimes when I come straight from the market, right? I just drop it off in the kitchen and they start using it. I said, but how do you know what to bring in from the marketplace? Because you need to have invoices. You need to have records about this. He said, but what exactly? Guess what? He kept on doing that, but after some time, he started recording losses. He will make more in the front in the POS, in the point of sale, right? But unfortunately, the inflow will not be able to help take him back to the market to get raw materials. So not until I was able to bring it in external auditor, right? That subjected the process to scrutiny and then discovered that there were leakages. That one of the managers was actually taking out fruit, taking out fruit to the wife that does the same business. So the SME was recording losses in terms of Apple and so on and so forth. Not until he was able to put in structure. So when we say structure, the grammar might look so big, but it's simple. Documentation process, record process, system process, approval process, right? And so on and so forth. That can actually save you a whole lot of money. Okay? Then now we want to look at the market. If you're coming up with a business plan, I want to see some sort of industry review. Please stop me if you think you're taking too much of your time. I want to see your demand or your supply gap analysis. All right? Yes. Who are your competitors? I need you to know your competitors to a large extent. Because if you're designing your strategy plan, some of the things you're going to be benchmarking is from what your competitors are doing to actually know what they're doing. So I expect to see some sort of demand gap, supply gap. Why are you getting to the market? And it's now common. Even in certain developing areas, you see people setting up hotels because others are doing the same thing. Or you see people setting up more because others are setting up more. So there's this bandwagon effect that actually drives them from their core area, to a strange area. And when they get in there, they get into debt trap. That is not. Number two, if you're coming as a new business, talked about existing businesses with, of course, your bank statement, your financials, I need to look at your audited financials, not your management account, except, maybe you operated 6 months into the new year, then I could ask for your management financials, all right? But we actually look at unqualified account financial, which is the audited financials. I want to know how you've performed. I want to be able to reconcile that with your bank statement because you could doctor the account. All right. I want to look at your bank statement. What flows into your account? What are the expense heads? Right? How do you manage your expense? How do you reconcile your income? Sometimes I've had, to confront issues like, for every raw material you bring into your production cycle, how do you determine the finished product? Input-output analysis. Some can't even determine their input-output analysis, not to talk of the margin that they can actually add, to the cost of production to be able to arrive at a more competitive pricing rate. Those are small elements that actually capacity building can actually clear out. But now, talking about new businesses, most banks and most financiers or investors actually are scared of attempting, to invest in new businesses because new businesses are like, I don't know, should I say, fresh virgins or so. Because you see, it's not just about all you're dealing with. I mean, the data you're going to be dealing with new businesses has to do with projections. You understand? So it's easier said than talk. Projections. then you're not a prophet. Even if you're a prophet, you could actually make some false prophecies. If you know. So one has to be very careful when you look at this kind of element. But then something usually stick out, right? If you look at a new business, there could be a problem that the product that will come out of that new business is going to solve. There could be a problem. Looking at the emerging finances right now, the digital finances, okay, of course, you know quite well that there are problems we were facing, conventional problems we were actually encountering with traditional banks. When they came in, you could see the clear gap that they feel, and that was why they were able to grow so fast and take up a larger chunk of the market. For every 10 customers you see out there, even youth, even older men, they're telling you they have OP account or money point account because it's easier, right? Because of certain things they've done at the back end. That's a problem that can be solved. That's why you see many venture capital actually tilting towards that direction, right? Now, there's another segment of banking that's fast emerging, and they call them the supply chain financiers or the invoice, discount financiers. They just focus on invoice discounting, right? They're not dragging in the space with commercial bank, conventional bank, even though commercial banks also do the same thing. So now people prefer to go to them because they're more focused with supply chain financing. There's already a structured agreement between them and the big companies like the Friesland. So what they do is that they fund your invoices, and you see SMEs teaching towards that part because they save you payment cycles to enable you sustain your productivity, so on and so forth. So some of those problems is what we look at for. Not as if we avoid startups, we don't avoid startups, but we look at your business, we still falls back to your business model and the problem that you want to solve. And apart from that, we also want to look at your market strategy. How do you intend to penetrate market? Because penetration too might be difficult because even consumers hardly trust you because they haven't tested your product, right? They have to go the extra mile to be able to determine if your product is going to be acceptable or not. And that's why even most people feel they're magicians. It's because the product is accepted in the market, so they go to bed thinking that, oh wow, if my product can be accepted, then I don't need another market. But it's quite critical that you're able to penetrate the market. Then when you penetrate the market, you can now begin to grow the size of the market. But let me round up with this. Of course, we all know what is happening in the retail sector, right? The might is falling on daily basis. Look at the experience of ShopRite, the experience. I don't know. Sometimes I ask myself, when is Walmart going to come into this country? Are they scared? Now look at the guys who are taking over the supermarket, the Market Square of this world, right? The Market Square of this world, the Banner of this world, the Prince of this world, the Blancos of this world. So many of them are coming up. They're taking over the market space. Okay? So how come they're chasing the mighty out of the market? That's the question we need to begin to ask ourselves. There's something they are doing right. Those guys are, so I think that's a good place for me to end my conversation.